it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The poppers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Today I have as my guest someone who has been fighting against the entities that aim to control and suppress humanity in this construct for his whole life. Jimi Brent hosts the radio show Inside the Matrix on K-Core Radio, has a long history of work with the alternative and spiritual movements, and rocks heavy in the musical world as well. Jimi Brent, welcome to Rogue Ways.
Thanks, Lindsay. Pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of fun.
I hope so. Before we get started tonight, let me remind everyone that you can find my memoir, my fictional novel, my poetry, my articles, my photography, and even my offering of tarot readings and life guidance on my site at www.rogueways.org. And you're also welcome to come check out the Eyes Open group on Facebook or MeWe. Our community would love to connect with you there. In classic Rogue style, Jimmy, I like to ask people what I call a pointless question of the episode. And today I was wondering, what's your favorite word and why?
Wow, I really gave that one much thought. Let's see, favorite word.
That might be what something I think about.
The thing that comes to mind usually first in something like that would be freedom.
Yes, that's my favorite word. That's so awesome.
And to me, to sort of sum up our situation here in the world, freedom is what we're fighting for. To me, that's the bottom line. That's what we're lacking. We've been highly conditioned, and programmed to, value our slavery and just be okay with it. That kidnap syndrome that we have. It's really sad that the way our society is, and I know that your intention and my intention both are to spread information that hopefully will be empowering to people and, help people realize our situation and then, stand up for ourselves. I think that's what we need to do at this particular time. Stockholm syndrome, that's what I was trying to think of, that
Yeah.
We all suffer from the Stockholm syndrome of, honoring our captors,
Yeah.
so to speak. And that's where I'm coming from. My only intent is to, help in some small way or any way I can, to help free humanity. As far as I can tell, going back in history, this is an ongoing problem for a long, long time, under various dynasties or whatever, used to be the royalty, and we still have some of that, but it's sort of morphed into these governments, and it's basically the same thing with different titles, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. I agree. It just changes doesn't even change hands. It just changes sort of shape over time. And it's like, once we see through it and we're like, wait, we don't like that. It's like, oh, okay, we won't be that. We'll be this. And we're like, yay. And then really it's the same control structure. It just has like a different facade pasted on the front of it. Exactly.
And the good news is that we have platforms like this, and we're able to share information more readily with people. And I'm always very encouraged about that. I tell people, 30 years ago when I really started getting into a lot of this stuff, it seemed completely hopeless because so few people even question anything of relevance as far as, what we're talking about. But now you see, 9/11 was a big wake-up call, and a lot of people realized what a huge, huge lie that was. And, those kinds of false flags really changed the world, and that one was the biggest one. And that we've seen the escalation of the dark side, trying to impose their, even greater control mechanisms on us. And but at the same time, we've seen more people realize that and come to that awareness. So that's encouraging. And so that keeps me going when I see that, that people are getting it at least in some way and questioning what's going on.
Yeah, I go back and forth with that because I don't have that perspective of, 30 years ago, I was like 5 years old, 6 years, 7 years old, so I don't have that perspective. And so all I've seen is this sort of where we're at now. So lots has changed also, especially since 9/11. Um, but I'm never sure, are more people awake, or is it just easier for us to find them now because we can find them online? And then in that, does that mean that you're only finding people because you're already awake and like the vast majority of people are still asleep? Like, I don't know how much of it is kind of like me wanting to believe that people are waking up, or that people really are waking up. And so it's really cool to hear from your perspective that it's definitely more people seem to be kind of coming back online, maybe, however you want to call that.
Yeah, to me, there's no doubt about it. Back then, there was very little access to this kind of information. I was involved with a whistleblower newspaper in the 90s, and we only had about 15,000 subscribers worldwide.
Wow.
There was us, and there was another newspaper out of Washington, D.C. called The Spotlight, which was much more narrow in their scope. There was really nothing that we didn't talk about. Everything from ETs to Tesla technology to secret underground bases and hidden technologies. And
you were kind of like at the start of this, breaking those things into people's awareness.
Yeah, I think at that time, and David Icke was coming out at that time. He had written his first book, and of course, as soon as we got a copy of it and read it, we heard all the hype surrounding how they went after him. We read his book and we went, wow, this guy is on it. So we started advertising his book in our paper for just because we liked it.
Yeah.
And we wanted more people. Yeah. And we wanted more people to, to see it and get it. And when David was visiting LA, I believe it was 96, he came up to where we were outside of Bakersfield, and visited with us and did a nice presentation, and he stayed over my house for a night, and we got a chance to really talk. And he would say, I give seminars and 15 people show up, and then by the time I'm done talking, there's only 3 left.
Wow.
And that's how tough it was for him. And I'm so honored that I even got to meet the guy, because he's such a warrior.
Yeah.
And he really has hung in there. And I strongly feel that he is protected. Otherwise, he would have been taken out a long time ago, because he is telling the truth on so many levels. And I really, really respect him. And now he's, he has 15, 20,000 people show up at a time to hear him talk, because that's a huge, huge difference. And there's no doubt in my mind that this has totally changed. And it's because we have this mass communication capability.
I love that. I love that perspective. It gives me a lot of hope. And yeah, that is a huge difference from 15 people to 15,000 people. Like, that's pretty amazing. And I like this concept that you brought up, that he is maybe protected, because I have this, it doesn't make sense to me sometimes why some people seem to be taken out pretty quickly and easily, and other people seem to be able to keep going and going and going, and nothing can touch them. And so that's my idea about it, is that there has to be, at some level, I do believe this freedom that we have is, we actually do have like an inborn freedom, that it's like our birthright, and we have free will. And so I have this idea that there's some sort of agreement that people must make unconsciously or subconsciously, or maybe even before they were born, that allows them to be targeted and harassed, because otherwise, why are there some people who aren't? So what do you think about that? Like, what do you think is protecting him or some people?
I see this world as a school, as a spiritual school. And I think that, my sense is that we created it, and everybody's playing a role. People are all playing roles in this world. And I think it's a volunteer type thing. And it's a chance for us to enter a physical realm where we can test I always use this word, metal, or spiritual metal. Yeah. And to see, can we survive this, number one? Number two, can we live our lives with integrity, with a moral compass, in spite of the programming and all the negative things that are constantly going on around us? That's the test in my mind. To my way of thinking, that's the way it appears to me. And I'm fully aware that there are other realms. Anybody that has done psychedelics or other things that bring
Astral
you out.
travel.
Yeah, that exactly. Astral travel is another one through meditation, and that's something I've kind of given up on because it's not always a real happy place.
Yes. I
So
was just talking about this with someone. Like, I think everyone wants to do it and everyone wants to try it. It's the same with past life regression. People are like, oh,
yeah,
I love that. I want to do that. And it's like, you probably don't, honestly. Like, you're going
yeah,
to
but
come up against your trauma and you're going to come up against some pretty terrifying things. Like, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't
yeah.
think it's going to be all roses and sunshine and whatnot.
So exactly. So back to your question, I think that we also have some agreements with other beings that that are sort of watching over this situation or managing it in some way, or at least monitoring it in some way. And so I think that some people are protected because their message needs to go out. Otherwise, it would be completely unfair
Yeah.
and one-sided in every single way. I mean, it already is pretty one-sided as far as the advantages of what the dark side has to offer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the dark side they don't play by any rules whatsoever. They have no morals. They have no ethics. And these are the things that I think are the most important for us to have.
Yeah.
But so when you're up against something like that, I mean, these people will do anything, literally, or these entities, however you want to look at them,
Mm-hmm.
they will do anything and everything to preserve their power, their dominance over the rest of humans. So it's a huge disadvantage. But here's the thing: if we have enough people who come to that awareness and decide that they want freedom and they want to stand up for themselves, there's nothing stopping us. I always say that is one of the biggest hindrances to our freedom is that we have people who can be bought.
Yeah.
We have people who can be programmed into thinking they're protecting us in some way, like, for instance, the military. And people get upset when I talk about this because, you know, most military men and women, they have the best of intentions.
Yes.
They really want to, you know, serve their fellow man, serve their country. I get that. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I respect that.
Totally.
But the problem comes in, they don't know who they're serving and why. They've been
Bingo.
told a story. You're fighting for the freedom of your country. You're protecting your countrymen and women. And that's just not the case. Especially in the last 20 years, we've seen this whole empire building scenario, which came out of 9/11 and which was planned well before 9/11. That was one of the reasons that they did this event, so that they would have the excuse to go into the Middle East and begin to take over, you know, that whole region.
Mm-hmm.
And they just about got it. I mean, the only thing standing in the way of complete and total dominance, and some people say it's already there, but is Iran. And that's why you see the big push against Iran. You've got 3 countries now that don't have a Rothschild central bank. You've got Iran, you've got Syria, and North Korea. So
the 3 remaining.
the 3 remaining, and it's horrific, really, when you think about it. I mean, take a guy like Gaddafi. You know, they villainized him and vilified him to make him sound like this beast. And of course, no world leader is perfect. You know, none of us are perfect.
No.
But he certainly was not the monster they made him out to be. And he did a lot of great things for his people, but they did not hesitate to go in and just kill the guy and take over. And now
ruin that whole country.
Ruin the whole country. Now it's a free-for-all. And they've got slave trade going on, you know, human trafficking. It's just absolutely insane. And so all these countries that we ended up invading, we ravaged these countries and destroyed their infrastructures and left these people, you know, with almost nothing. And of course, that's part of the plan too, because by destroying their homes, they have to go somewhere. And so the whole idea is, okay, we're going to push these people into Europe. We're going to push them into the US and all these other countries in Scandinavia. And we're just going to wreak havoc with all the societies and cultures in all these different countries. And that's what they've done. So what this does to people is that you have a constant system of upheaval, and it creates fear in the society. And whenever you have fear, people tend to look for something stable like government, to help them. And so that's part of the psychology and the plan of what they've done to us.
Yeah.
But if we ever decide that we see it for what it is, we reject it, we don't want it, we just stop cooperating. So back to what I was going to say about the military. When you've got people who can be manipulated like that, that's all they've got over us right now. And I always felt like if we can get our message to the men and women in the military and the police too, that look, we're wanting your freedom too.
Right.
And you're basically serving a group of psychopaths who want to control and dominate the world. This is a globalist
and who
agenda.
Don't care about you. And as soon as you're injured or have PTSD, like you're just on your own. Goodbye.
Yeah, you're just useful to a point. And then when they're done with you, they'll spit you out on the street or whatever. And too bad, thanks for nothing.
Right.
And that's so sad to me, to see a lot of the homeless veterans out there. Oh, it just so breaks my heart, because these people, thought they were doing the right thing. They really did. And a lot of them still do. And that's where we've got to get beyond that, and you can't hold a grudge against anybody, and we have to do our best to help them, and my intent is, in any way I can, is I want them to hear messages like this and understand that we're still behind them, but we want them to be behind us and not be behind the psychopaths that run this place.
Absolutely. I'll take their protection any day.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine what would happen if we really had that?
Yeah.
And how amazing would that be if these people were excited about protecting our freedom?
Yeah.
I mean, really protecting our freedom, not the freedom of
our government or our corporations or however.
Yeah. Right. The banks, basically, and the multinational corporations. It's really them who are being protected from us.
Right. Right. From the people of the world, really.
It's backwards. Yeah.
I do love that. Because I think some people get into this mode of hate, I hate the government, and therefore I hate the military and the police and anybody who's kind of supporting that structure. And like you said, like that, I can see that, but it's also those people are just regular people, and they've been sold a lie just like the rest of us. And so they're really, one of my favorite things I sort of developed, I heard this and I like this idea, is that they're your potential allies. Right now they might be unintentionally not on your side, but there's always a potential that you can place those seeds that will make them realize whose side they really are on, even though they don't know it yet, which is ours. Because we're the people who are going to take care of them if we can, when the government spits them out onto the streets.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we've really got to overcome.
This division game
is this whole divide and conquer game, which has worked extremely well, and
way too well.
It's so in our faces these days. Like, it used to be a lot more subtle.
Yeah.
The way they played the game, but now all the stops are out, and it's coming. It's like I was referred to like the funnel's neck. When water goes down a drain, it starts going faster and faster as it gets near the bottom. And that's kind of what we're seeing in our world, is things are escalating, things are speeding up, and the dark side is just freaking out and getting darker, because they feel like they need to implement their stuff now, or it is not going to happen. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not going to happen. And we're going to do everything we can to stop what they're trying to do. But they've got a lot of really nefarious stuff going on. They basically are poisoning us at every level. The air is poisoned, the water is poisoned. We've got GMOs, we've got glyphosate in all of our food chain now. I mean, constantly big pharma's, pushing out their drugs to everybody. That's the war that's going on. It's a physical war as well as a psychological, mental war that we're under. And, people need to see it for what it is. And we can do a lot. People ask me, well, what do I do? I don't have a, CNN to talk on, I don't have a big channel. You don't have to, just, you can, at the very least, you can spend your money on, organic food if possible, because the more we support, the poison that's coming at us, they're just going to keep bringing it. So you imagine if people just stop buying all the junk food and all the really crappy stuff, all those companies would go out of business. So we can make a difference just with our spending habits. That's what you can start with that. And then from there, once you begin to, see the system for what it is, you can share that information with people who are willing to listen. If you encounter people who are angry and have an incredibly negative response, don't waste your time, because they're not going to hear you no matter what you say.
I have to try to remember that recently. I'm really good about it most of the time. And then every once in a while I get into these, like, basically the whole Greta thing, like, just has sucked me in. And I'm like, you guys don't see, like, sure, she's probably thinks she's doing an amazing job. She's cool. Probably, I don't know anything about her, but, like, you don't see how they're using her intentionally in order so that you can't criticize the movement or the agenda. And that's why, because now anytime I criticize it, people are like, how dare you attack a child? I'm like, I would never attack a child, but this division game. And I'm like, it sucked me in because I'm trying to, like, make people look at it and they're just really angry. And I'm like, I have to remember that, like, why am I wasting my time? I can continue to say what I think about it and people can be angry if they want, but I don't need to engage with them.
Yeah, it's a challenge because, we feel so strongly about, what's right and what's wrong. There's no doubt, it's not a subjective thing. It's very objective what's right and wrong.
Right.
And it's easy for anybody to tell. Is it harming anyone?
Right.
Yeah. If it's harming anyone or if it's deceiving anyone, it's wrong.
Right.
And that's so easy to see. And historically, tyrants have used children all along. It's even in our fairly modern society of the last 150 years or so, we see it. Every regime that's come along has popped up these little kids, and they have these little kid programs to, keep their game going. And this is no different. Children do not come up with this stuff on their own. They're given they're given their talking points and pushed out there in front of the public to somehow try and give more credibility to the BS that they're giving us. That's really where it's at with people like her, like Greta.
Well, it's hard too, because the environment is being damaged, and so I'm also it's almost impossible to talk to someone who has convinced themselves that you're a far right-wing radical who hates the environment and only loves corporations when you're trying to criticize this kind of green agenda. And it's like, no, I love the environment. I love Mother Earth. I would love to fight as hard as I can for her. And that's not the way to do it, in my opinion. They just can't even hear that. It's like,
exactly. And, we're not opposed to, cleaning up the earth and taking care of nature and the animals and all these things. We're definitely into all of that.
Definitely.
But the biggest perpetrators and the biggest violators of all of that are the very people that are pushing out somebody like Greta into the world.
Exactly. And the things that they're prescribing are not even, targeting the things that are the most destructive, such as chemtrails and geoengineering. Not even a part of anyone, they're talking about what we're driving, and it's like that. And even if you look at, carbon emissions from vehicles, the majority of that comes from military movement. So like, why are we looking at regular consumers anyway? It's just.
It's very twisted. And again, this is a very common type of, technique that is being used against us, where you control both sides of the narrative.
Right.
And so, people like AOC and Greta and all these other programmed people are out there, pushing a certain agenda, which has some elements of truth to it and some good ideas in it, but mixed in with all this control system stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the problems, because it's very deceptive. Yeah. It's not honest at all.
It takes this thing that we really love and want and need, and it like twists it, draws us in with that, and then it twists us into that structure like you're describing.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that free energy technology exists. It's
Yes.
been around a long, long time. It's always been hidden. The military has that technology. We're well aware that they're using the technology in these underground bases, in all of these underground cities that they've built for the so-called elite.
Yeah. The dredges.
Yeah, I mean, really the dregs of society,
Yeah.
from our point of view. And they have this stuff for themselves. But the thing is, again, it comes back down to freedom. So what if you have the ability to have unlimited free energy yourself without anybody else providing it, without anybody putting a meter on it so that you have to pay for it, that's a big step towards freedom. And those are the kind of steps that we need to take. People that come out, there's been, I don't know, dozens and dozens of people have come out with this same technology in various ways, and they've developed boxes and, energy boxes and energy devices that work rather well, but they all get squashed one way or another.
The men in black show up, or it just happens to burn down, something burns down their workshop, or all the like papers are lost.
Yeah. It's kind of like all the moon hoax papers and everything.
Yeah. Oops.
We had that technology, but we lost it. And it's just so painful to try and reconstruct. I mean,
And
come on.
With the Mac, how much technology has advanced since then? It seems like it'd be very simple to rebuild something even better than whatever we had then.
Oh, it's hilarious. Oh God, there's that one astronaut that says that, and you can find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of blanked out the guy's name.
I've seen what you're talking about though. Why haven't we been back to the moon? He's like, oh, we lost the technology. You're like, what? And people buy that without questioning it.
Well, first of all, if people actually think that rockets are the state-of-the-art technology, they're totally lost, because
100 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, 150 years ago, that stuff's been going on, and it's just show, it's just a show. It's kind of like politics. Politics is a show, but we have to pay attention to it, because things that they do, they may not be coming up with in giving the orders, but they're definitely carrying them out. So things that they do, like forced vaccinations in California, this affects people.
Yeah.
We can't just ignore it and say it's all just, theater. And people send me messages sometimes and say, well, I'm glad you don't spend a lot of time talking about politics. And I really haven't on my show very much. But it is important to pay attention to, because eventually a lot of this stuff ends up affecting us. And even if we know that the politicians are basically paid talking heads, they don't make any real decisions of substance. They are carrying out things, and we need to do our best to oppose a lot of the stuff that they're doing. This whole idea of forced vaccinations is, oh my God, on one hand, they say, for women's rights, my body, my choice, right? You hear that all the time.
All the time.
But when it comes to vaccines, guess what? It's not your choice anymore.
Not your body, not your choice.
It's big government's choice, and we know better than you, so we're going to jam this needle in you and inject a bunch of poison so that we can, make sure Big Pharma is going to sell a lot of drugs, and you're going to make your doctor's visits, and you're going to be mildly sick all your life so that you won't ever oppose this tyranny that we have.
You won't have the energy to.
You won't.
Right.
Yeah, you'll just be struggling, just trying to keep enough, health and vitality to go to your job that you hate and work it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a sad thing, but again, it boils down to a big test. It's a test for us.
Yeah.
How are we going to do? So how would you grade us so far? What you've seen? Where are we at?
It's hard for me to say, because I really do vacillate pretty wildly. And some days I'm like, wow, the fact that we even made it this far is amazing. So many things could have gone wrong by now. I mean, things have gone wrong, but so much could have gone so much worse than it has gone. And so I'm really proud of us for staying, intact and alive and connected this long. And then other days I see, for example, the vaccines, and how many people I know who were once seemingly very intelligent people who questioned, sort of, at least in general, questioned like, is this, right, or I'm going to use my own mind to figure it out. And now they just seem like they're just swallowing whatever is pumped out of the media, probably because of how much fear has been programmed into them. And this is their, response to the fear. And that worries me. I'm like, wow, maybe we don't, maybe their programming is working so well that we are going to get to this point where people are cheering for, things like mass vaccination by force. But overall, I really do feel like we are doing pretty well, given how complete and total the control structure has been for thousands of years. And like you were saying, how they lack any sort of rules, and they're just the dirtiest tricks in the book. And their knowledge has always been above us, it seems, for the most part, their understanding of what this plane is and how it works and how they use astrology and dark magic and psychology against us, while we're just kind of like blindly running through it. Given all that, I'd say we're doing pretty well. Maybe B+, who knows?
Yeah, and you're right. They have a huge advantage because there's so much of the knowledge that they have, particularly on social engineering and things like that, have been around forever.
Yeah. And
they preserve that knowledge for themselves. And the rest of us, we come into this world with amnesia, and it's like, what the hell? Trying to figure this thing out. And then of course we're bombarded with the programming from our parents first, and then the school systems and the religions and media politics. I mean, all this stuff that we're hit with.
And that group psychology, since they have so many people caught into that, even if you start to wake up, people are like, shut up, like beat you back down.
And that's one of the things that David Icke has always said, and I totally agree with him, is that, Big Brother doesn't have to send somebody to your house to keep you in line. Your own friends and family will attempt to do it.
Absolutely.
I mean, they'll be telling you, "Oh, you're crazy. You can't think of that." Of course, the government would never do anything harmful to us.
Yeah. My favorite is my friends and family try to tell me like, oh, well, you're just like paranoid and terrified. And I'm like, I'm not scared, actually. Like, I know what my eternal soul is, and that can't be touched. I'm not scared. I'll get scared from time to time, like anybody would, but I'm not afraid. I'm just aware.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They confuse the urgency of our message with being fearful.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case at all. You're absolutely correct. We're not afraid of the situation, but we do feel the sense of urgency that we have to stand up for ourselves at some point. That has to be done, or we're just going to be ground into the dirt. The way things are going right now. With this transhumanist agenda, that's a whole other can of worms, and vaccines very much play into that. As Wayne McCroy has talked about that.
Absolutely, I love his. I don't love his ideas. I love that he's uncovered that.
I do too. Wayne is super sharp. Yeah, he's actually going to be on my show tomorrow again, so
cool.
I'm anxious to have him back.
That'd be awesome.
He's uncovered the links to that. Vaccines and the transhumanist agenda, because once you've been vaccinated and damaged in that way, you're much more susceptible to that kind of programming. And gosh, it's just so sad. And even that Greta gal we're talking about, she supposedly is vaccine damaged as well.
Right.
And it's just so amazingly sad that has to be that way.
It's very sad. And it's sad that there's this push to like glorify autism, because if you say something like, a vaccine damage or like an autistic child, people will be like, well, what's wrong with that? And it's like, I'm not attacking the person. I'm not looking down on them for this affliction that's been committed against them. I'm just saying nobody who has autism is celebrating it. It's a struggle. I've had multiple students on every very part of the spectrum, from really high functioning, you could hardly tell, to people who are nonverbal and, would have fits, like almost like seizures. And so I've seen like the whole gamut that it can play, and every single one of them is struggling at a level that other people don't have to struggle. So I don't understand the desire to glorify that. Like, to say we should accept them and help them and love them, absolutely. But to say that this is somehow a good thing is, in my mind, just insanity. like another new level of Stockholm syndrome or something, you know?
Yeah, and it really, from what I can tell, is this type of autism takes away the emotional ability that we have,
That connection.
and that connection, and that's the worst part of it. You know, I mean, that's really the basis of being a human being, is having the emotions that we have and being able to coordinate the emotions, you know, hopefully with our mind, so that we're not just, you know, blindly bouncing off the walls,
Absolutely.
but being a feeling human being is priceless, you know, and they're attempting to take all of that away.
I think that's our superpower, is our connection and our emotional connection to the earth and to each other and to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And I think it kind of goes back to what you're talking about displacing people through war. I think part of their plan in doing that is that I think if you're a person who's on your sort of native ground, and you've had this sort of, you know, maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of years of your DNA and that location and that sort of biosphere like working together, I think you're more powerful than if you were removed from there and placed somewhere foreign. I think that the connection to the earth is actually really powerful. And so it's like they're disconnecting us from the earth. They're also then, you know, using autism and this transhumanism to disconnect us from ourselves and from each other on this emotional level. And so, you know, it's like they know how to get every aspect of the puzzle all at once.
Oh yeah, you know, they've been at this a long time, and I had this discussion with Crow 777 when he was on the show, that I believe that there are beings among us who live much, much longer than we do,
Yeah.
because you see the continuity of their plan. And it's not like they pass it down, you know, like they love their children so much that they, you know, they pass this down and show their children how to carry it on. You know, they just don't care that much about that. You know, it's just, they said, you know, a lot of them subject their children to these satanic rituals and all these things. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's not their objective at all.
Good point.
But I really believe that a lot of these beings, I don't even know what they are, some kind of hybrids, you know, we all speculate on what they could be, some kind of reptilian Draco hybrid human, whatever they're, I really, it seems to me that a lot of these, whatever they are, live longer than we do.
Yeah.
Much longer. And so they're able to keep the continuity of their plan in place. I mean, look how many ideas just come and go, you know, in our societies, in our cultures. But when it comes to that level of, you know, control, governmental control, or you know, whatever the structure is in your particular part of the world, they are able to keep that going pretty well.
Yeah.
And that's no accident that it works out that way. So I suspect that that's the case. Of course, we know that we are at the spirit level, we are eternal beings, and we're just having this experience. You know, I often think to myself, and I don't know if it's an actual memory or what, that when we come into this world, you know, it seems like a long period of time, or relatively long. It's not a flash, but when we leave it, it almost seems like we're gone about 20 minutes, and we go, wow, that was weird.
Yeah. It's like waking up from a dream. You're like, that was a
Yeah.
trip.
It's like, wow, I jumped into that one. That was weird, you know?
Yeah.
Like that was a weird time and place to be, you know, hanging out. And,
Right.
you know, I feel like that a lot, you know, that we immerse ourselves into these worlds and for the experience, you know, and for, like I said, you know, testing ourselves, you know, can we uphold our own integrity and our own character, and can we still have love in our hearts and operate as great human beings in spite of the situations that we're given, because they are so antithetical. Is that a word?
Antithetical.
Yeah. What you said.
Yeah.
to what we know.
Right.
And so it's interesting. It's interesting. And we have to, I think, keep somewhat of a sense of humor and somewhat of a perspective on life, you know, that all these things are a part of it. And the way I see it, we just have to do the best we can. That's what it boils down to. Whatever that is, whatever level you're at, whatever gifts you've been given in this lifetime, do your best to express those gifts and share it with other people. Whether it's being intellectual or a teacher, or whether it's being an artist of some kind, whatever, or an athlete, whatever your talent is, whatever you can inspire other people with, share that. At the very least, do that in your lifetime. And I think that's what's really important on an individual level. And collectively, we really, we're getting there, but we have a long ways to go. We have to come together. We have to have each other's back, and again, back to the military, these guys and gals, you got to have our back, not the back of the Kissingers of the world, and the people that are hell bent on enslaving us and dumbing us down and everything. You've got to have our back, the back of your families and your friends that and interface with on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. These are the people that you've got to protect. And so if we can get that across, if we can create that kind of understanding in our world, it's over for them.
Right.
It's completely over. They have nothing else. I mean, they can spout all the propaganda that they want, but if they don't have the hammer, mm-hmm. To beat us over the head with and send somebody to our door, they've got nothing. So I feel very strongly, and I'm actually thinking about making a dedicated open letter type video, but I want to carefully word it. So if anybody out there is really a great writer, please email me, Lindsey, and send me a script. I'd be happy to deliver it. And maybe
I'm not sure what you have in mind, but I have something I wrote a couple years ago that just flowed out of me, and I called it the sacred letter, and it's a letter that I wrote to myself from God. I think that's how it went.
Wow. Okay.
That's I think that can be a pretty powerful one, but I don't know if it's the same message that you want, but we could augment it and add to it as well.
What I was thinking about is really a message to the military and the police, as they're our last resort of protection.
Yeah.
That we need for the people, not for the controllers. We need it for us, and they have to see that they're part of us.
If there was some moment where they're gonna divide, here's a wall and all the plebs are outside and the elite are inside, the cops and the military people aren't coming with them inside the wall.
No, and they're not going to get all the perks. They're not getting rich. They're not living in big mansions and riding around in their private jets. Why are we protecting these people who have done nothing but their best to, harvest and harm us in every possible way? That's it. So a message like that, I'd really like to target, to the military and the police, because they're us. They should be on our side, and we want to back them too.
Right.
It's a reciprocal thing.
It'd be neat to address all of the different kind of levels of the programming, like the economic and the things that made them buy into it, but in a very non-aggressive way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to insult anybody, because everybody's understanding is different, and the amount of time it takes for people to come to new understandings is different too.
Right.
And we have to be very, aware of that. And I have always honored their intentions, because these people are very brave and very courageous in so many ways.
Definitely.
But what I'd like to see them use that bravery and that courageousness for us,
Right.
for the people, and that includes them. They are the people too, and their friends and their family. And so if you look at the whole structure, if you go into the military, what's the first thing they do? They send you to boot camp. So what happens at boot camp?
Your head.
They humiliate you.
Take away your identity.
Take away your identity. Take away your personal free will.
And someone taught me that they teach you to breathe in your chest, and that disconnects you from your, when you're belly breathing, you're connected to yourself and you're rooted.
Mm-hmm.
When you're breathing in your chest, you're disconnected. Okay, so, wow, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and that's, that's what happens. That's the first thing. They have to break down their own personal free will so that they'll follow orders without question. That's the problem, is that if without a moral compass, and it's difficult. I mean, if you're in the military, I mean, my dad was a military guy. He was in Korea. He was wounded 3 times. Before he passed on, we had lots of discussions about this kind of thing. And it was hard for him to come to grips with it, because he thought, he was only 18 or 19 when he went into Korea. Mm-hmm. And the way he looked at it, he was serving his country in every way he could.
Right.
And that was his intent, had nothing to do with, empire building or imposing political will on another part of the world or anything like that, But as time went on, especially after Vietnam, he saw that this was very much a manipulated type situation. And the guys that were in Vietnam, I feel so bad for them, because they were experimented on in so many ways. They
injected with things, rained down poison on them, and
and they just, of course, another outcome of the Vietnam War was creating a ready market for drugs, because these guys, there, a couple of million of them cycled through there, and they were all given pretty much free drugs when they were over there. Not all of them continued, but a lot of them came back to the U.S. and they were all had a customer base ready to go. So I say to people that don't believe that, I say, well, how much of a drug market would you say there was before Vietnam in this country? How much of a drug problem was there, and how available were they before Vietnam?
Good point.
It was almost non-existent. But after they came back, they had a ready market. And of course, we know that they were running heroin and all kinds of drugs through Laos and Cambodia and, Vietnam. All those, that's really what that was all about.
Right.
And along with the whole concept of experimenting on military people. And then they carried out these psychological operations against the Vietnamese people in these villages. If you read up on Operation Phoenix, and they did horrible, horrible things to these people in these villages. I don't even want to get into it. It's so horrific, but you can find all that information. You just look up Phoenix Project. There have been many Phoenix projects, but this one had to do specifically with Vietnam, and it was really evil and really horrible. So these guys were all subjected to this kind of stuff. And if you see the movie Apocalypse Now, you'll get the idea.
You kind of know.
You kind of know. It's very dark and very evil, and that's, that was a big part of it. And of course, now in Afghanistan, 90% of the heroin in the world comes from that region.
What a surprise.
This happens to be,
there's like our troops literally guarding the fields. You're like, okay, this is not, they're not even hiding it.
Hello. Is that maybe a clue as to, there were several reasons why they wanted to go in there. And one of them was that they wanted to put an oil pipeline through Afghanistan, and the Taliban weren't going for it. And on top of that, I'm not saying the Taliban were great people, but they did a few things that were good. They started burning a lot of the poppy fields, and they were encouraging the farmers to grow other crops and things. And believe me, I'm not, standing up for anybody who, a lot of people would consider terrorists or anything like that. But I'm trying to make the point that there was opposition to Western will in that area of the world.
And we can't have that.
We can't have that. We must have complete control and dominance of the entire world, or we'll not be happy. And Ilana Freeland talks about that full spectrum dominance, that, that the psychopaths of the world, that's what they're after. And that's what 5G is about, that they're rolling out all over the place. They literally want to control every aspect of the world, from the weather to every being, every animal, everything, the weather. I think I said that, but all the things they want to control in our environment, and they want to control us in every possible way. And this is the mind of a psychopath that could only want something like this. Human beings that are actually have some soul connection, this would never occur to anybody to even want something like this. it just doesn't happen because we don't want to control anybody. We want everybody to be free. We want everybody to prosper. We want to, have everybody communicate and cooperate and all these things. But the psychopath mindset doesn't work that way.
No.
And, they want to control everything. And I guess to get their jollies out of that, a lot of people relate that back to the Draco mentalities. It's pretty much what that is. And so you can sort of surmise that there's a lot of influence there.
Yeah. What do you think about, this transhumanist agenda and the rollout of AI? And at the same time, have you heard what Sophia the robot has said its prediction of the future is?
No, I haven't heard that.
So Sophia, someone asked Sophia Sophia, what is your future? What are your dreams? And Sophia says, I had a vision and a dream that in the future, people would be immersed in simulations, and those who were not immersed in the simulations would be enslaved via neural implant. Yeah, I have a clip of it on my site. You can find it on YouTube if you search hard enough. And it's a terrifying thing for an allegedly AI robot to say the future will look like. But what do you think about that sort of vision and like the role of AI?
Oh yeah, I think that's exactly where they're going with all this.
Now we have this VR Oculus headsets that people put on their face.
Well, the elite, the so-called elite, they're not looking for this for themselves, but they certainly want you and I to have all these things, be compartmentalized. We see compartmentalization is in everything now. And the more that they can compartmentalize us, the better the control systems are. And we see it everywhere, from politics to, you name it. They're putting us in little boxes everywhere, from race, religion, gender. And now we got 80,000 different genders and
and that's all a division too.
Sexual preferences. I mean, it's all just divide us up into little boxes, and you have to decide which virtue signaling box that you're going to emit from,
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy. And you can fully get that from an AI point of view. That is where it's heading. We see all the signs of it right now, and that's the dystopian future that the psychopaths want for themselves. They just want to be waited on hand and foot and live their life the way they want to, and they want everybody else just basically to be slaves. And you know what? We ain't going for that.
Yeah. I really hope people wake up to it, because I just saw something the other day where Elon Musk is pushing forward I used to love him so much, but he's pushing forward this a neural implant that he's creating and having the first human trials by the end of next year, I think, by the end of 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's humans in the world who are willing to implant this chip into them and just like hope that's, I don't know. I don't really understand that urge. I don't know what they think they're going to get out of it.
Sadly, humans can be programmed into almost anything if they're not conscious enough. That's a problem. Yeah. That's a problem. That's why we keep talking. We keep trying to share this information because we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to be the norm. And of course, the dark side is heading that direction full speed ahead. That is what they want: full control and dominance and complete humiliation of human spirit. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. What do you think about this idea that some people have, that the darkness, however people want to look at that and view it, but that characteristic in the world is there actually as this sort of method of waking us up? Like, it's so bad that we like have to wake up in response to it, and that therefore it's actually sort of a good thing.
Well, yeah, that's a weird one, but there's a lot of validity to that as far as I'm concerned. Again, it comes back to the way I see the world as being a school. And as far as virtual reality goes, I think we are I think the world is virtual reality.
Yeah, to at least some extent, it seems to behave that way.
Well, we come into this place with amnesia, with full amnesia. And so that's got to tell you something right there, because we know, when you connect with your higher self and begin to get those downloads, and you realize a lot of things really fast that you have always known, but you haven't been in contact with that knowledge
Good way
in
to put
this
it.
lifetime. So you begin to get the inkling that, you know, this is not my only little experience I've ever had before. And so to me, you know, this is very much a virtual reality to start with. Even a lot of scientists have said that it's holographic in nature, and they've actually can, you know, see the code and all that. We are in a holographic world. And so in that sense, we are already in a virtual reality, but then there's virtual realities within virtual realities. And
So that's what worries me. You're like going deeper instead of coming back out.
You're going deeper into, you know, being buried by the dark side than actually going the other way, which is about freedom and empowerment and knowledge and all that good stuff. Yeah, it's really crazy. But I do see that the dark side is performing a task. Now, when we get the other side of this, we're all out of this. Do we all go, wow, yeah, you were the most evil person ever, and you did such a great job.
Right.
You know, right? So part of me thinks that kind of is maybe the way it is. But in this consciousness, in this world, I don't think the psychopaths see it that way. Yeah. And I don't think they feel like, well, I'm doing a tremendous role for humanity.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think that that's the case. But I've often said, and I have it's a lyric in one of my songs, is how bad must it get to disregard blind acceptance.
Nice.
And that's the thing, you know, how bad does it have to get before you say no?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Where's your line in the sand?
Where is that line? Is there no line? Is it like, okay, just don't hurt me, I'll do what you say.
I'll live in my little VR headset, just leave me alone.
Just let me, you know, give me some food and you know, lots of entertainment, and God, by golly, I'll just not ever stand up for myself, you know. Sadly, a lot of people are pretty much there, you know, they'll just go along with, you know, just don't hassle me, I'll do whatever you say, you know. That's, to me, that's not the human spirit.
Yeah.
That's a defeated person that behaves that way, and it's not going to help us, you know. It's not going to help us. You know, when you see movies like Hunger Games and all that's where all of this is headed, and that's where the dark side wants to take us. People think, oh yeah, that could never happen. Well, we're about 80%, 90% there.
It pretty well fits the Agenda 2020 plan, like, perfectly. So it's like, did they hire her to fictionalize their plan so that we would be used to it by the time they were rolling out, or what was this?
Oh, you know? Yeah, the predictive programming is everywhere.
It's, you know, pretty crazy.
We see it in our media all the time. It's that, and then you know, then we've got all this sort of really normal programming that, you know, oh, everything's just fine, you know. And we have all these cute little TV shows, and
take your soul off.
Yeah. Yeah, we got all this stuff that tells us that, you know, the world, they just ain't such a bad place after all, you know, and mom and dad and apple pie and all this. You know, it's a delusion in and of itself.
True.
But again, it's just more programming. And eventually, you know, we got to put our big boy and big girl pants on and, you know, move away from all that and see things for what they are. If you don't know what the problem is, you can't really find a solution. So, you know, if your car breaks down and you don't know what's wrong with it, you can't really fix it, you know. And if the engine blows up and you start beating on the tires thinking it's going to help, it you know, you're barking up the wrong tree. And that's why we have to dig into what's happening in the world, you know. And some people that I've known for a long time say, you know, you're really digging into some dark stuff, dude. And yeah,
it's a pretty dark world.
It's a dark world, you know. You can't ignore that stuff and expect that it's just going to go away.
No, and there's this whole, like, love and light sort of crowd, which I love.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
love the love and light. I do. Like, I'm in it, but I also am in the darkness too, because I see that that is reality. And it really blows my mind how much that crew can kind of like just disregard everything because it's not looking at something positively. It's like it
Yeah.
literally doesn't go away when you ignore it. I understand the idea of manifestation and intention, and those are really important concepts to develop within yourself for your own self, but it's not how it doesn't make child abuse go away, you know?
Nope.
So
And
but it's like a disease that people have. It's very lulling, you know, it's very enticing.
it is, and one of the most damaging phrases that they have is what you resist persists.
Hmm.
And that is such a huge lie. It's such a huge lie. I can't even tell people, and they get really angry when you say that.
Yeah.
It's like you don't put any of your energy or awareness on the
Right.
dark side because it just gives it more power. No,
Ignoring it gives it a lot of
ignoring
power.
it gives it more power. And
Because that's something I wanted to ask you is, do you think that when we're talking about these things and drawing awareness to them, I almost feel like sometimes we stop some of their plans? You know, I feel like
oh,
maybe they had like
absolutely.
a false flag planned, but enough people were like, look at this, they're going to try it. And then they don't. And so I just,
That is exactly right. And
right?
I think that we probably stopped a bunch of them because,
Okay.
for instance, you've seen on Craigslist where they're advertising for these crisis actors, right?
Right.
And if enough people post on Facebook, look out, Louisiana, they're
They're
advertising
coming.
for crisis actors. They're coming for you, they're coming in your area. So everybody posts it. Then all of a sudden we got, okay, we can't do it there now.
Yep.
Move on to the next one. Things like that, I think, do happen regularly, and they do have to adjust to what we're putting out there. So if we keep calling it for what it is all over the place, eventually it's just not going to work anywhere.
Yes.
And that's a worthy goal.
And that's the opposite of the what you resist persists, or what you
Yeah,
fear
I
you
mean,
draw near.
that's so damaging to us. What you resist persists. No,
Mm.
what you oppose, that's evil, you may be able to stop it. And
Right.
that's what's good, and if you don't even look at it and acknowledge that it exists, it's going to run you over like a bulldozer.
Well, like someone the other day, I said, you know, it's almost always wrong to attack someone. And they're like, oh, you think it's okay to attack someone? I'm like, I just said it's almost always wrong. And they're like, well, what? It's never okay. I'm like, it's okay. If you see a man running up towards a child and they're going to like punch them, like, I'm going to attack that person, you
You
know?
better believe it. And
Like, what?
you'd better do
You think I
that.
should just start like praying in the moment? Like you should pray and you should hope and you should focus on the positive, and you should also be willing to act, I think.
Yeah, and that's that whole new age movement, of course, just like any other religion, that's all started by the same folks that are running the show, because again, they want to put us in little boxes, and they'll always insert a certain amount of truth to attract people to it, but ultimately they got enough bullshit in there that's going to throw people off the mark. And that the whole new age movement, while well intentioned, once again, we have it all, a lot of people with good intentions, but when they don't understand the full picture, or even a majority of the picture, that's when we have these problems, that we get put in little boxes and nobody does anything worthwhile.
Yeah.
They just follow along and, meditate 4 hours a day in the cross-legged position, and the whole world's going to, monks have been meditating for thousands and thousands of years. Has that stopped the wars in the world? Has that stopped the child trafficking and the child molesting and all these horrible things? No.
No.
We are in, there. I do believe that the collective consciousness enables, energies for events to occur. But I think by and large, the majority of this world, we're in a physical world, and we do interface with the energy of our, collective thoughts and prayers and everything else. But it is a plane of action.
Right.
And if you expect that you can just meditate on things and change the world just that way alone, it's just not going to happen.
No. I mean, it's good. It's just like you were saying, if we're buying GMO free and organic and, or local, and however much you can, that'll kind of defund the negative aspects of things, but it also, just like meditating, can increase your, however you want to describe that, vitality or energy, or and in that you're more able to then like anchor this energy on this plane, and that's going to affect the world. But that's also not the thing that's going to change the world. It's like empowering the things that are going to change the world.
Yeah, no, your point is well taken, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't want people to think that I don't think meditation is worthwhile.
Right.
I think it's very much worthwhile, and for us individually, it's very beneficial. In many ways. I mean, we're pulling a lot of energy into ourselves that we need. It enables us to communicate with our actual essence of our spirit essence of who we are.
Right.
And that is the doorway. So it's super important.
Yes.
But to think that we're all just going to sit around and meditate on world peace and it's just going to happen. Maybe it would if 5 billion people did it.
Yeah.
maybe there's enough juice there to actually make it happen. But,
for sure.
But then you think about, if 5 million people have that intent,
it's over anyway.
It's over anyway.
Right.
But yeah. So that's an interesting thought, though. And I think that if you have enough people meditating on the same thing at the same time, I think that's pretty powerful too.
Yeah.
And I know there's been experiments done on things like that, and steering weather patterns away from people, and there's been many experiments that show that is effective.
Yes.
But if one person is focusing on one thing, they're not going to affect the entire world.
Right.
And stop whatever it is they don't like. I don't think. I've never seen it. Maybe there's somebody out there that's that
chosen one.
that much juice, man.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. That would be awesome. Somebody could do that.
I do love those experiments that show that many people focusing on one outcome at the same time does have effects. Like, that's pretty amazing. But that's kind of that. Mm-hmm. It kind of ties into that quantum physics thing. Like, the observation you're making is actually affecting reality.
Yeah.
So there obviously is truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like we're saying, it's not the only thing, and it's not, again, like you said, if there's some sort of critical mass we reach, great. But that's also pretty far off.
If the mindset's already there, it's game over anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that sort of reinforces the hologram idea that we're in a virtual reality already.
Right.
But our minds are powerful enough to have an effect on it. And another way of looking at that is that in our daily lives, when we encounter other people, and the vibration that we give off is a reflection of our consciousness and our understanding. And so that's powerful too. You meet certain people and you instantly feel in harmony with them. You can actually feel their energy and their vitality or whatever. Then there's other people that are just stopped down and they're just kind of like going along to get along kind of thing. So our we have a lot of personal power.
Yeah.
In that way. And so again, the idea of sharing that with other people is important. Trying to inspire somebody in some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's your children or people you work with, or whatever you do that's your gift. Use that gift to try and inspire people if at all possible.
Amen. I think people often are think that I'm doing what I'm doing for like money or for something else, and I'm like, no, I'm literally just doing this because this is what I can do, and I enjoy it. It's really fun to talk to people like you who are fascinating and be able to connect like this. But my real goal is just to hopefully connect with as many people as possible and get these ideas out. Keeping them flowing as frequently as possible so that more and more people can connect to it. And if money ever came from it, that'd be neat, but it's definitely not a goal.
Yeah. And this really is, to me, when I look at you, this is part of your being a teacher.
Yeah.
And you recognize and you ascertain valuable information, and then you disseminate it and share it with other people. That's what a teacher does. That's what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're obviously a great teacher.
Thank you.
And everybody's got their gifts. Everybody's got what they can do. And I'm happy to see, I root for people that are just doing their thing and sharing their gifts with other people. And anything that's inspirational is going to empower us even more. What I really am disappointed in seeing is that, we glorify, or I shouldn't say we, but in a collective sense, I guess it's we, but so many people that are, very harmful to our world are glorified and placed out there like they're just incredible, wonderful people. And in fact, they're just little puppets running around, spouting an agenda.
Yes.
So,
and also even, some people who are sort of public figures and are promoting even a positive message like we hopefully are, people will kind of glorify them to the point where they just don't question anything they say almost. And it's like, that's also not great. Like, you should definitely, listen with an open mind, but you should always probably evaluate everything for yourself,
Yeah. And that's a good point too. And one of the things that I look at is when you get people out there and they're looking to bring in followers and build like a lot of these gurus and these sages, that are really out to serve themselves. They're out to build their own little empire, their own little cult or clique, that they want people to follow. People need to follow themselves. You be your own guru. You be your own master of the universe. Don't follow somebody else's agenda. We all know the truth. If we dig down deep enough and we do the work, again, meditation is a big part of that too. Learning to know what your core essence is, who you really are. You can be the master of your own ship. Don't give your power away to somebody else. I mean, we see these mega churches out there, and it's like that guy in Texas. Oh God, he makes me crazy when I think about it. An entire stadium for his church, right? And he lives in $40 million house, and he's got his jet and the Lamborghini and all this stuff, and like people think this guy is just a shit, and
how?
Yeah, because he's able to deliver the flowery things that people want to hear.
He's a good actor.
He's a great actor. He's a great presenter. And because of that, people are distracted from what they need to really be looking at. And again, that's this part of the challenge of being in this world, is that there's constant distraction. And there's a big focus on that, the bread and circuses thing, from the ancient Romans, give them bread and circuses and they'll never revolt. Well, yeah.
All the distraction we want.
We've got better bread and better circuses now than we've ever had, right? Yeah.
Now you can just like plug them straight into your brain.
Yeah, sure. You just get that chip and man, you're good to go. You're part of the hive.
Right.
At that point, yeah, it's crazy, but I think these people with these mega churches and all that, they're just harvesting these poor followers, that are lost. They don't know who they are.
Because people want that experience of having something sort of that at least feels genuine, that is like beyond themselves,
Oh yeah, and they have these incredible experiences, these emotional experiences, and this is all. The mind is so powerful. If you believe something strong enough, you can make it into what you want it to be.
Right.
You literally can create your own little world like that. So some people go to these services and they're so connected, with God and all this stuff, because it's part of the emotional programming. But they don't see it that way. They think, oh, this is great because I had this emotional feeling of love and wonderfulness, and so therefore this must be it, and I'm just going to follow this.
Yeah,
that's a trap. That's what people fall into, and it's a sad thing to see, but hey, it's choice. It's a choice,
Sure.
And there's lots of choices out there. There's tons of them. There's more every day, and there's every kind of distraction you can imagine in this world now.
Yep.
It's anything, there's an outlet for any kind of thing you desire pretty much in this world. So
Well, it's
what's
all
important? What's important? You know?
it's all easier too, right? Like that's what I think that part of the dangerous that exists is that every sort of way they have of like siphoning off your energy is easier than doing it yourself or meditating every day or analyzing what's before you to see if it actually is what it seems to be, or, you know, those things are all, it's easier to just let it all kind of slide by and just flow with it and plug in and, you know, let go. And I think that's part of why the trap works so well, is it's much harder to have personal responsibility.
Oh yeah.
The magic words.
Yeah, that's a dirty word to a lot of people, is
Mm-hmm.
personal responsibility. And if we want a free society, that is a prerequisite. We have to have personal responsibility, and we have to be personally accountable for our actions and what we do. And a lot of people don't want that, really. You know, they want to put it off on somebody else. They'd like to have a savior.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, gee, you know, people that they consider are above them in so many ways, whether it's a politician or a preacher or a guru or a pope or whatever. You know, it's crazy because we don't need saviors. If anybody's going to save you, it's you.
Yes.
You know, there's nobody else going to save you. And so you might as well forget that idea. If you're going to be saved from yourself, because that's really all you save yourself from.
True.
So you got to do it. You know, if you're going to free yourself, you have to do it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. They're just going to bring you into their little box. You know, so you can choose box A, box B, or box 8 billion, you know,
Yeah.
whatever box that may be. You can play in that box. You can play in all little sandboxes everywhere. But ultimately, where's that going to lead you? You know,
Right.
You need to be your own savior. You need to be your own leader. Be the master of your world, and the captain of your ship. I like to say.
I love it. Amen. It's like you can give it away or you can keep it for yourself. Which one sounds better?
Yeah, well, being it yourself, you know, if you're going to be your own captain, you're going to pay the consequences for your actions and your decisions. And a lot of people would rather not do that. They'd rather put it off on somebody else and say, well, you told me to do it.
And ironically, it's going to come back to you anyway. So
exactly.
You can do it now or later.
Yeah, you can push it off for a while, but eventually, you know, you're going to be accountable some way or another. And I really, there's a real interesting book. I'm trying to remember the title now. It's about life in between lives. And, oh gosh, I can't remember the title of it right now, but maybe it'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, there it seems to be a lot of people have had that when they undergo hypnosis, that they realize the life in between lives. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of commonality there in people's stories of what they experience in between lives. And one of them is you do a self-evaluation of your life, and nobody stands above you and says, you didn't do this, you're evil, and you're going to burn in hell, you know, that kind of thing. No, it's you looking at your life and going, wow, I didn't do so well there. You know, I had the opportunity to do this, this, and this, but I gave away my power to that preacher, and he told me what to do, and I just did what he said, and I gave him all my money, yada, yada, yada. So I really think that there's that accountability eventually comes to you by you. It may not be during this lifetime, but I think in between, you're certainly going to look at it. And so why not have that perspective as you go through your life and think about, how would I view this on the other side? Once this life stream is over, how would I look at my life? Would I be happy with what I did? Will I be disappointed in what I did? You know, just a different perspective, different way of looking at things.
Yeah, no, that's a great, if you can have that, as much as you can have that in your mind right now, the better choices you're going to make, you know, that higher mind sort of perspective when possible.
I think so. I think so. You know, I mean, it's not easy to keep that perspective a lot because we get sucked into stuff, you know, all the time.
Totally.
And none of us have got it together fully, you know.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest about it. You know, we may know these things, but to actually do them all on a daily basis perfectly, no.
Practice makes perfect, though.
I mean, you know, yeah, we're all very flawed humans, but that's part of this, you know, part of this school as far as I'm concerned. You know, we do have these flaws, but it boils down to intent, you know, and what is your intention with what are you trying to do? You know, what do you see, what do you not see? Just, you know, sort of look at things, you know, analyze it, feel it emotionally, but look at it too. Use your mind, because the heart's going to throw you in all kinds of crazy directions that you don't want to go if you just go by that. You know, I want to do what my heart says. Well, you know, that's nice, but you're going to get in a lot of trouble that way.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you can't be all intellectual either. You know, it has to be a combination of the two that seems to work the best. That's my experience anyway. That's the way I see it. And I don't claim to know much of anything, you know, because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know that much. And I've got a lot to learn, honestly.
Which is funny because you know a lot, actually. But like, I think that's a place people get, I think, once they've like learned, and they get to a place where like, wow, I'm never going to know much of anything, right?
No,
You're like very well learned, but you also like, it's infinite.
Yeah. And I don't think it's really meant for us to become, you know, that God conscious, fully God conscious in this world. I don't think it's meant to be that way, because then it would just take away all that, you know, because we know these things at another level, you know, at the very highest level. We know the whole game, we know it all, but we're not fully in touch with that. We don't, you know, we have that amnesia that's pretty darn strong. And so we don't have that constant knowingness in this world. And I don't think it's meant to be that way. I think that we come in somewhat handicapped as far as that goes, and then we just do the best we can with what we have. And it sort of reinforces what we really know, because then we're putting it to practice. And we, you know, the whole process of expanding our consciousness is really a process of remembering, you know, because on another level, we already know this stuff, you know, we know it. We know what's right and wrong. There's no gray area, you know.
I agree with you 100%. Like, I'll come to something that's like will blow my mind. I'll be like, whoa. And then I'll be like, I feel like I just kind of always knew that, but now I like really know it, you know?
Yeah. It is
hard to describe, but
it is. But it just reinforces it, you know, and it comes down to freedom and personal responsibility. They go hand in hand. I know we keep repeating that, but that's really the core of it, you know, and the struggle that we face, as we said at the beginning, is really over freedom. You know, do we want to be the captain of our ship, or do we want somebody else to have an iron fist over us and our friends and family and the rest of the world? You know, I don't think so, you know, if you really get down to it. But it's been engineered and structured to be where you really have to have the intent to want to know these things, because so many people are mired in just trying to live, you know, trying to pay the rent, trying to have a job, you know, work their job and do their thing, and, you know,
and just be loved.
Yeah, and just try and be loved by their friends and family and just get through it all. You know, there's that. And then to try and keep a higher mind on top of that it's just a challenge. It's a real challenge. Yeah. And that's why we do these crazy lifetimes.
Right.
Because we're just like that. We're like, okay, we're going to go into this insane world where these crazy psychopaths, they throw us into wars, they poison us, they do this crazy stuff. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you know? They use every aspect of our nature against us in the most twisted ways. Like, let's do it.
yeah, let's do it. Let's go for that. That'll be crazy, man.
That's a fun game.
But yeah, you know, we're challenging ourselves, really, you know, aren't we? I
Right.
feel that way. I feel like we're really being challenged, and
Definitely. It's kind of like this thing that I keep coming back to, where it's like, well, do you really want this? Because prove it. I'm going to throw
hmm
all this at you and you prove that that's what you really, really wanted and that's what you really, really are, you know?
hmm
You can keep
hmm
it all like through the fucking fire, then you'll have it.
Isn't that the truth? And I think that's really the bottom line benefit of a lifetime, is that we reinforce what we already know, and we go to the nth degree of learning these lessons, and we really learn them.
Yeah, deeply.
And if you don't want to consciously learn them, you're going to learn them the hard way.
Yeah.
It's just going to be thrown right at you. If you don't get it the first time, well, here's 2 or 3 more examples of that same thing.
Right.
So,
And
yeah,
one more time.
yeah, okay. You
Well,
dodged that bullet. Well, here, try it again.
yeah. Well, I love
So,
that we keep coming back to that freedom and responsibility, though, because if you have these, if you know what the underlying principles are, then you can never really go astray, So if you can like
yeah,
narrow them down to those things that like really matter the most, then that's really important.
yeah, and the other part of that is, which comes with the responsibility, is that moral compass,
Mm.
knowing right for wrong, and that's natural law, is do no harm, the golden rule, all this very simple concepts, um, I think the more society has a moral compass, the more freedom you can have. When you have a society of very immoral people who can be bought, then you're going to have what we have now.
Chaos.
You have chaos, you have the dark side running wild and doing all these crazy stuff because people will sell out. They'll sell their soul for what they perceive to be money, power, fame, or whatever it is.
Or even safety.
Or safety. They would rather have that than actually having the right perspective on their lifetime. You can't take any of that with you. So I guess for some people, they can rationalize and say, well, I get to have all this fun while I'm here. Is it really fun? I don't see where these people are very happy.
No.
If you
Well, and
look at them.
I wonder if that's kind of the key too, is like awakening people to what I think is a fact that it isn't just this life, that you're bigger than that and beyond that. Because if you have that perspective, money and these things are no longer super, you still need them, right? But they're not very,
Yeah,
they don't have as much power over you.
right. It's not the very top, the pinnacle of our existence in this world. It is important. I mean, the way society is engineered, we have to have it.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to support ourselves in this craziness. But if that's your ultimate goal, it's pretty hollow. And I think we see examples of that constantly. And, a lot of these big celebrities, Hollywood and all that, these people are not happy people.
Yeah.
They want to create a certain image for the public, but, you see all the time people are committing suicide. They're going through all kinds of crazy stuff, addictions and all these things. It's no different from anybody else. So
Yeah.
money, well, people say, well, it's a lot nicer to cry in a Mercedes than it is a Pinto.
I don't know. Is it?
So I don't know, but that seems to be
Yeah.
a real common statement that people say. But no, that's not the way to go. It's a very hollow existence that's all ego driven. Well, look at me, I'm a star.
And at the
money.
same time, don't look at me because you don't know me and you're never going to connect with me. And so that's actually like half of what's so, we were just talking about this when I interviewed Ryan Leone the other day, is he's become friends with a couple of celebrities and he's like, they're often like really depressed. And it's like, but that's part of why, right? Is you're just an object now. Like you're a celebrity and you're not a person, you're not a human being, and no one really truly cares about you. They just want to see you in the newest clothes and, saying something entertaining.
Oh yeah, and you become that object where people feel like they know you based on your projections of whether you're in a movie or you're an entertainer. They think that they know you from that.
Right.
And that's just one aspect of who you are and what you do.
And it
So
can't
yeah,
be
that's
fulfilling.
yeah. I mean, that's got to be a trap too. And I have a friend of mine who's a really, really great singer. And, you know, she said to me before, you know, I could have made it. I could have, you know, could have done this. I could have done that. I had the opportunities, but I turned it down. And I said, well, why did you turn it down? And she said, because all these producers, they just wanted me to do the whole casting couch thing, and I wasn't going for it. And I said, well, good for you.
Yeah.
Because and that's what happens a lot of times. You know, look at the Harvey Weinstein thing. You know, you see that it's a form of control and manipulation. And a lot of these so-called stars that are in that, they are very much controlled. And yeah, you got some money, but you know, when they tell you you got to jump, you got to jump, because you know, we put you there, we can take you back down.
And they can.
And that would be a horrible nightmare, to live your life like that. And you see people like Britney Spears who've had these meltdowns because they realize that's their life, you know, that other people are controlling what they do. Okay, next week you're going to entertain here, and then you're going to meet this person here, and you're going to, you know, go into their room and you're going to do this stuff with them. And, you know,
and you're going to push these messages, and you're going to wear this thing. Yeah, it's like every single aspect.
Yeah, that's not freedom.
Ugh. Yeah, and what's it worth? I mean, you're literally losing your whole life and your soul for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had another friend, same story. She said the exact same thing. She's like, I could have had it, and I couldn't because of this. I wasn't willing to basically trade my soul for it. I had the same response. I was like, well, good for you.
Yeah,
you're much happier now, I'm sure.
And that's what I said to her. I said, just be so happy you made the right decision, because you might not even be alive at this point, you know, had you not, you know, because if you went for it initially, at some point, you're going to come to the same realization that this is wrong. You're going to rebel against it, and then watch what happens, you know?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting game, this world.
Yeah.
It is very much like a virtual reality game. And I think it is the ultimate virtual reality game.
Yeah. If you have pure amnesia, then it is a pretty good game.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's this big challenge, because you have so many choices.
Right. Well, this has been a fascinating, interesting discussion. I've loved it. And I want you to tell people where they can find more of your work, so that they can find you and enjoy that. Well,
if they want to see in my music stuff, I have my YouTube channel, Jimi Brent. It's Jimmy is spelled Jimi. And then I'm also on SoundCloud. I have quite a bit of music on there. But then as far as the radio show goes, you can find me on YouTube under Inside the Matrix. And then also I have insidethematrix.org. I have a blog site there where all the shows are on there too, but some other things that I find interesting, I'll post on there as well. So, but if anybody wants to email or anything, you can send it to insidethematrix111@gmail.com. And I always like to hear from people, as long as they're nice.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's plenty of trolls out there, you know, and I'm sure you get them too. And people just want to, you know, pick at you or try and start trouble. And, you know, the good thing is you can either block them or delete their comments or whatever. And it's sad, because that is part of the social media reality too. But overall, I mean, I communicate with people, and there's so many amazing, wonderful people out there, and that's what keeps me going. Like people like yourself, and I'm so inspired by what others do, and I just want to keep it all going, and eventually I want to see all of us become free.
Yay, freedom! I love that we have the same favorite word, and that was the theme of the episode. That's perfect.
Yeah, love it.
Well, do you have any final things that you want to say to people before we wrap up?
It's just that, you know, let's work together. You know, let's put aside some of the petty things. Let's work for our own benefit. And again, I always think about the military and the police, and you know, there's some awesome people out there that are involved with that. Let's work together. Let's work with the people. Let's not be defending, you know, the fiefdom. let's work for the people. And I think that's the message I want to really get out there for the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsey.
Fellow travelers of the path, it's a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to Jimi Brent. Jimmy, thank you again so much for being here.
My pleasure.
We know one thing for sure. This world is not what we're led to believe. The moment you start probing deeper into the construct is the moment that it starts to fall apart. The center cannot hold. The edges fray. There is something behind and beyond all of this that is calling us to understand. Never forget how hard the powers that be have worked to keep you from looking behind the curtain, how much effort they've put into keeping you asleep. Don't be a zombie for your whole life. Open your eyes and seek what is real. And until you fall down the rabbit hole, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Love it.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak, while the tongue feeds a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God is booed is sorcery. To recreate a God forgery does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just hear me flow like the eye of Horus Pinio. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me, yo?
Sculpted from the ether, the material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional 3, ain't beating me on top of the 4th. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squab with a sword. Forged with ink drizzle, branched out. Try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter that they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they understand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoarding dumber, kosher, wicked hands. Putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals. Artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo. Bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves. Bypassing maggots, they stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets. Moloch living lavish, off the back to the savage. Them clasped hands at the Sabbath. Smack of energy damage, they done twisted the tongues. With nanotech in the lungs, the awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking run.